It sounds more like a spiritual business than it really is a relationship to God.
It's weird because there's so many parts of it that feel deeply, deeply connected to God. Like on a Sunday, we're crying, we're talking about our traumas at the altar. There is this bond that's happening, whether that's manipulative or not, that feels very godly and very connected to God. And that's what makes most people in this situation very confused, because you're like, no, 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 I know God was there. I know what I was doing was good. And I know this was real, but this also is real.
Right.
So, how do we reconcile both sides of our experience?
Right.
That there is a God that I have met in church that felt very, very real. There is movement and miracles and signs and transformation and things that I have seen with my own eyes that I said, oh no, this is God. And yet, things that make me want to throw the whole thing in the trash
Right.
at its core.
Welcome back to Legally Uncensored, where we break down the messy, the complicated, and the untold. I'm attorney Demetria Graves, and on this show, we explore love, law, and the messy middle of relationships. Whether you've been married, divorced, or never walked down the aisle, we give you tools to navigate relationships, family law, and even everyday dating. Today, we're diving into what happens when faith, marriage, and identity collide, and what it looks like when a woman chooses herself. This episode is a continuation of our season's conversation on relationships and personal truth, and it's a bit different from our last episode about sexuality. This one is about choosing yourself and trusting what marriage and relationships should look like for you. Today, we have a very special guest, Myesha Chaney, who is an author, speaker, and reinvention strategist. Myesha's work sits at the intersection of truth, identity, and the courageous act of rebuilding a life from the inside out. Known for her candor, clarity, and emotional depth, she helps people become honest about their lives and begin again with integrity. Myesha is the author of Hiding Behind the Lipstick and the forthcoming book, Honest, and she hosts the Myesha Chaney podcast. Her voice has been featured in Essence, Success Magazine, The Washington Times, LA Weekly, Digital Journal, MSN, and Medium. Myesha, welcome to Legally Uncensored. Yay!
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. I am so happy you are here. In my practice, this is very, very important. A lot of women, especially Black women, struggle with religion and divorce and ending a relationship maybe that they did not want to end in this space. So your voice for me is very, very important. I need women to see that although it's something you might not want to do, although sometimes you might struggle trusting God during times such as these, that you will be okay. So your story is so powerful. I'm so honored that you said yes. And so many women need to hear from you and see that there is light at the end of this divorce tunnel. So, I try to be an inspiration, but I don't think I can do what you can do from being in this space. So with that said, for those that know you or not, you were once a first lady. What was that like, that experience?
Being a pastor's wife is a unique situation. It's a unique role because there are expectations that aren't always communicated. There isn't a manual that comes with it. You find a guy that you like. He just so happens to be a pastor. You get married. Now you're the pastor's wife. That's as simple as it is. It comes with it's just a set of expectations and rules that I think the pastor's wife doesn't know. So it's fun. And I remember being 20 something years old and trying to find myself. I was married. I enjoyed people looking up to me and being an inspiration. I enjoyed having the space to be used by God and have a community of people. Anything I wanted to do, there were always women there that said, "What's your idea? Like, what can we do next?" All of that was really, really meaningful. And at the same time, it's suffocating. It's difficult to navigate. You become a shell of yourself. You learn to be the version of you that is accepted, not the truth. And this weird dynamic is all wrapped in God.
Mm.
So there's also this backdrop of like, this is service for God. These are God's people. I'm denying myself for the sake of God to live in this life in this role. Everybody's looking at you. Everybody's having expectations, and there's things you can say, you can't say, that you don't know you can say or you can't say. And yet it looks very beautiful from the outside.
Wow. Is it ever something that you took to God and said, I know I have to show up this way, but I'm struggling myself with showing up in that way. What do I do?
Once being a pastor's wife and everything that came with it, once that started to feed my own dysfunction, it was difficult to manage and see it from that perspective. It was, this is what you have to do to survive. And this is what you need to do. This is the path. I used to tell God all the time, I guess you chose me for this. Like, life is about sacrifice, and it's not about what I want or what's meaningful for me or what's pleasant or positive. It's just, you do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
You do what you have to do. And every day I woke up and went into my life and I did what I had to do to the best of my ability, no matter what it cost, no matter what it hurt, no matter the questions and the wrestling. I spiritualized it all, that this was a part of my service to God, and that was it.
And so, on top of the challenge and sometimes the joy of being a pastor's wife, you then went on TV with others and did Preachers of LA. So, how did that add another layer of complexity to what you were already going through?
Preachers of LA was a bit of a special time because it was when I started waking up, and it was attention and me coming out the hood, being this girl who thought, I have big plans, I have big dreams. There's something enormous I'm meant to give this world. Preachers of LA was, to me, I thought, like, this is it. Like, I'm on television. It felt good to be seen by others and to be known to a certain degree for me. So it was a catalyst for me. I write about it in my new book, that was when I had visibility for me, not necessarily for Myesha, his wife,
Right.
or pastor's wife. It was the first time that I felt seen without having to be in a certain role. It was a mirror for sure. It was a mirror to the relationship. I don't know if it enhanced it or took away from it. I know I look back on it now and say that was a unique experience because it led me to waking up even more.
Did that change how you showed up as a first lady after you had that exposure?
By that time, I thought I was getting in my bag. I was like feeling myself like as a person. And also, I got married at 21. By the time the show came out, I was in my early 30s. I had three. I was on my third child. I was finding my way, and I was feeling very comfortable in the role. I decided I'm going to make it what I want it to be. And whatever that brought up in my marriage is what it was. But for the most part, it was a good time for me, I think, in my early 30s to be on this platform and doing my work and finding my way. Truthfully, honestly, it was, I look back at it with positivity in my heart.
Were there expectations in terms of, were there discussions about, okay, this is what we're going to do on TV that was different than when the cameras were off?
I was trained from the very beginning of what was acceptable, how I needed to be. And I got the social cues. There would be a look, there would be a conversation. By the time we got on the show, I was already programmed. I knew how to run the script. I knew what was acceptable, what wasn't acceptable. I was already the Stepford wife. Like, it was a non-negotiable. But I was 19 when I met my ex-husband. And so I was in some ways groomed for the life that in order to be in this path, you don't talk about this. You don't slip up. This is devastating to what we do here. And so I learned like a dog, like a pit bull with a chain around his neck. I learned how to roam, how far I can go, what the consequences would be. And then I learned how to make the most out of that room and that space.
So, how did that impact your ability to be honest with yourself about your emotions, your experience, if you disagreed with the story that you were told and led to live by?
There was no room for that. I could not be honest with myself in my life. I loved and lived the illusion like everybody else. I believed that it was real, even though in my heart of hearts, I knew something was wrong.
Right.
I knew something was wrong at the very beginning, I would say. I knew this something about this isn't right, but what do I do? I would have never thought about divorce. I would never thought about bringing up an issue. I learned growing up, you take whatever you're given, you make the best of it, and you move forward.
So, there was no mentors, no one that you can say, okay, when these hurdles come up, what do I do?
No, there were people always around,
Right.
but I couldn't be honest with them.
Right.
That was not going to work. And if I couldn't be honest, then what was I going to talk about? So there were parts of my life that I just kept quiet and I kept to myself. And there were other parts that I was very vocal about, very outgoing, which was very confusing to people now when they say, well, if you were going through things, why didn't you say anything? Like you were saying everything else because that was okay for me to say what I
Right.
was saying.
Right.
What I couldn't say, I didn't. Okay. But that's just the way it is. We get in this life, and to be honest with you, the mentors were full of shit anyway. They weren't being honest with themselves. They had the appearance, they had the success, but they weren't true. I looked at their marriages, and it didn't look good to me either. So it was like I just felt like everybody was hiding,
Right.
and that's why I wrote the book, Hiding Behind the Lipstick. That's where it was born.
And get that book, y'all. Get it. Do you think God is in that? No, the more I talk about spirituality, God, church, do you think God is present in these experiences?
I do not think God is present in these experiences. They don't look like God, they don't feel like Him. He is much more kind, and there's a lot of grace, and there's space for humanity. Somehow we have built ministry in life to be the direct opposite of that. It's more about hiding and showing people. And I fault both sides.
Yes.
Because if pastors and people in ministry could be more honest and the people would be more accepting, then maybe they would.
Right.
I don't know. I haven't really seen it modeled very well. It's usually lies, deception, scandal. Then you're sat down and you lose and you no longer get to serve.
Right.
Or you're a piece of crap and everybody knows it and we tolerate it because it feeds whatever we want.
Right.
That's the other side. There isn't as often as I would like a delicate balance between this is my humanity, this is who I am, this is how I'm showing up. These are my shortcomings. Here's what I'm doing to walk with God in this. And I'm inviting you along the journey.
Right. It sounds more like a spiritual business than it really is a relationship to God.
It's weird because there's so many parts of it that feel deeply, deeply connected to God. Like on a Sunday, we're crying. We're talking about our traumas at the altar. There is this bond that's happening, whether that's manipulative or not, that feels very godly and very connected to God. And that's what makes most people in this situation very confused because you're like, no, 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 I know God was there. I know what I was doing was good. And I know this was real, but this also is real.
Right.
So, how do we reconcile both sides of our experience? Right. That there is a God that I have met in church that felt very, very real. There's movement and miracles and signs and transformation and things that I have seen with my own eyes that I said, oh no, this is God. And yet things that make me want to throw the whole thing in the trash
Right.
at its core.
Right. I think that's the work that needs to be done now, right? How do we reconcile the two in a time where a lot of people are abandoning the church for the reasons that you have specified, which saddens me, right? But that's a whole different conversation. You got me started on something else. But when did you know it was time to go?
I knew it was time to go when I felt like I was going to die. There was something inside of me that says, if I don't make a change, I have no idea what that change is, but if I don't make a change, I'm not going to make it. And at that point, I didn't look too far down the road. I looked at the next right step. A lot of people get so overwhelmed because they go 10 years down the road. Well, if I leave, then how am I going to pay my bills and how am I going to raise my family and what are the people? I just said, I feel like I'm going to die if I don't change. So, what is the next right thing for me to do? And I just did that series of steps. I don't even know if it was like married or not married or work or don't work. It wasn't that clear. It was just, I got to get out of here.
Yes. What was the first step that you took?
The first step I took was being honest and telling my partner that something has to give. It's not working. And at this point, I don't know where the real problem is. I have no idea. It just feels like a ball of confusion. It took years for me to wake up, though.
Yes.
I was probably frozen and in this loop for about 14 years
Yes.
straight. I never mentioned anything about my marriage problems, anything to anyone. And then I started therapy. And then I started a graduate program that did the deep work that helped me reconcile a lot of stuff within me. And then I came online, that the version of me that I was when I grew up, she started to come back online. And there were things that she could not accept.
Yes.
The old version of me did accept. And those thoughts, those feelings about what I deserve, what I need, what I want, they wouldn't go away. About the kind of life that was okay for me to live, that wouldn't go away. And I don't know if it's me demanding more. I don't know what it was, but I knew, okay, I need to take the next right step. I was honest. And then I decided to not work at the church anymore. That was my first step. That maybe if we get this part out of the way, because I'm the pastor's wife, but my husband is my leader at home. He is the boss. My financial stability rose and fell on him. He was the pastor. He was the father of my children. There was no room in my pie for me. There was control by another human. The way we designed our life, that he had control. I had to come to him for almost every aspect of my life. And I said, well, maybe if we get rid of the church part, that's very stressful. There's a lot to do there. I was running the operation and I thought, let me just get rid of that. And so that's one piece of the pie that we can try to like get rid of. And so that was my next step.
You said something very important that a lot of women think once they call a lawyer's office, that has to be it. They have to go and file tomorrow. And I always say, no, stop and make sure that that's really what you want. Because a lot of people have family and friends that, oh, just file. And sometimes that's not what you need to do. And to your point, it can take 2 months, it can take 20 years, but it has to be your journey. It has to be your truth and what you want to do. And it's very powerful in taking one step. You're right. You might not be able to run out and get the apartment and, get back into the workforce, whatever it is, but you don't have to have it all figured out in the next 30 days. And I think that's what a lot of women struggle with because they haven't had to decide. They don't know how or when to make the decision, but it's okay not to have it figured out.
Right. And there are so many, like I always say, is there another exit on this road?
Yes.
You can say, I'm going to do this part and then wait.
Right. Right. Or start and pause, or it doesn't have to look however people think it should look.
And it's scary the whole journey, no matter what you do.
Right.
And I knew if you stay, you're going to die. If you leave, you may die, but at least you get to choose.
Right.
That my first choice, my major choice in life that I made was divorcing at 40 years old. The first time in my life that I didn't run it by another person.
Right. How did you get to that point from making the first step to stepping away from the church? So, you know what? Divorce it is.
There were a series of things, and of course, I talk about it in the book. I don't know if I want to give it away.
Just give us a little bit, just a little bit.
There were a series of things that happened after that where I felt completely discarded. The message was clear that if I didn't occupy this seat and if I wasn't playing this role, there was no use for me. I think my like deal breaker was my safety, and I stopped feeling safe. I don't think I ever felt safe in my home. But at this point, I started to feel like I could be in danger, and it was affecting me at a level that I thought, like, this is not real. This is a Lifetime movie. Like, I wrote a letter saying that I am of sound mind and body if anything happens to me, and I would get them notarized. Like, I was at that level. Like, I am okay. There's nothing wrong with me. And I would take it and get it notarized, and I would tell my family. We came up with a passcode. The step that I took at that time confronted 20-year history that I don't get to choose. And me asserting myself in that way and saying no, like, and I can say it now with confidence, but I was shaken. I was scared. That time in my life was the scariest because I had never had boundaries before in my life. I always allowed other people to do what they wanted to do. And I always chose what benefited other people and not me. And the first time that I'm actually setting a boundary and saying, this is what I need. If you cannot give this to me, or if this does not happen, then I cannot be here anymore. And still finding ways to like make it work and make it make sense. I think there was one incident that happened and I was like, yeah, we're done. We're done. I was done. So it's almost like when you set intention for what's important to you, sometimes life will bring circumstances that you cannot deny.
Right.
You can try all you want that God is not pleased and God hates divorce and these things and come up with all of these excuses to keep you safe. But there were things that started to happen where I knew without a shadow of a doubt, we are never going back to the way we were. And it was done. That was it. And April 3rd, he moved out. And it was over, just like that. It was probably, I left the church, my last day was 12/31. Started therapy the first week of January. That was very important, that need to be in therapy. And April 3rd, he moved out.
Once he moved out, how did you start to navigate that? Like, wow, I set a boundary. They didn't want to respect this boundary. I'm going to have to now not only rebuild my life in a way that maybe I've never had to do it before, but the life as I know it is over.
I don't know if I got that far. I was in survival mode. My thoughts were racing. I was enmeshed. I was not a full person yet. I had not become separate. So I was in survival mode, and I was very hopeful that somehow, some way things would work out. I honestly thought that my church, the people in my church would support me. I honestly thought that some positive can come out of that. I don't know why. I just thought that this is painful for us to separate. And I didn't give as much thought to everything else. I was just thinking, we can no longer be together. We need to tell the children. We need to start the process. And that's as far as I got. Mm-hmm. And then once he sent out a message, he posted it on social media, and he sent it through the church email to everyone at once. He did send me a message, but it was like maybe 45 minutes. And the way the message was, it was like, okay, I'm going to have to make a statement. And it was like, come to church tomorrow for prayer. So to me, it felt like he was going to read this statement at church tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And it was a Saturday. And so I remember thinking, like, I was crying. I was like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the time. And then I started getting all these text messages from all these people. And I didn't know what they were talking about. And they were like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. These are like people I've known for years, friends, family. And I'm like, what are y'all sorry for? What's going on? And they're like, it's all over social media. So I think after that moment, everything was gone. Friendships were gone. The church was gone. I never got in front of them again. So life for me changed immediately, and I was done. That was it.
Did anybody from the church that you thought you may have been close to, did anyone come to support you? Say, I'm here for you. We're going to navigate this together.
They said it, and then they went back and told him everything I told them the next day. No, thousands. That shocked me. That surprised me, because the things I'm talking to you about, ministry and about how things go and people being able to be human, I did my graduate degree in that. It's a process, spiritual formation. So at this point, I've been in therapy for 4 or 5 years. At this point, I have really done work to know my trauma, where I've come from. How did I get here? What do I do to fix this? The marriage was the last part. And I had an expectation that people will be to me what I have been to them. I don't need you to like be all over me and like choose a side. No, just be to me what I was to you. Mm-hmm. Like when you went through your divorce, like show it for me the way I showed it for you. I don't care about anything else. That did not happen.
How did you work through that?
Cried my eyes out, walked, questioned God, walked away, completely unraveled, completely got to nothing. I am nothing. I have nothing. Everything that I have built my life around was a complete lie. It was a fraud. I had to accept like all of it, that it was real to me, but it wasn't real. And that was painful. That was the hardest part. People always ask me like, well, how is it that the marriage ending wasn't as painful as everything else? Well, because I already knew that was a problem. Mm-hmm. I just needed the courage to choose and align with myself over what that represented. So I could accept that didn't work. I couldn't accept that the God that I had known and worshiped and the people that I had loved in the hospital rooms I was in, and people pulling the plugs and the birth and the weddings and the, you name it, that all of this too had to leave.
How did that impact your faith?
I want to say I walked away from God. It was just too painful. I didn't understand the frame because I had lived this life and taught this and got theology degrees and I understood it, but I only understood it from one POV. I was 19 when I came into this life. So now I'm 40. So my entire adult life has revolved around church, in church, conversations about church, conversation about God. This was the first time that I found myself on the outside and looking in and seeing the discrepancy and how, like, it just destroyed and I had to deconstruct everything that I knew. What is the Bible? What is the teaching? Who is God? How did we get here? Like, complete back to zero. And it took me a while. And I went on a journey to find who is God? Who am I? I experimented with all kinds of things, psychics, and I did mushroom journeys. I did Reiki healing. I did all kinds of things in that period of time to find, because I had been taught all this time that all of this was demonic and just to kind of control me and keep me in a certain loop, to keep me performing, to keep me being what everybody wanted, to keep me in service. And now when all that was gone and I didn't have heaven or hell or rules to govern, I was like, well, who am I? What will I do? And that journey actually took me probably all the way back to God. Took some time.
Mm-hmm.
It took some time.
When you got back to him, what was that like? What were those conversations when you got back to him?
I cried a lot and I felt like the 99, like that story where he goes after the one.
Yes.
The 99. For the first time, I felt like I was the one that he was coming back for. And then I started to understand what deconstruction was and the season that I was in and how so many people were in that season, started to talk about it more. And I am still reconciling some parts. I think the church is in for deconstruction itself. I think we're going through a collectively where a lot of people are having a lot of issues with what they've been taught and what they've experienced, and in reconciling it for themselves. The challenge that I know I had was I was very public. I was platformed. I was speaking. I was singing. I was traveling. I got canceled and no one ever invited me back. So here I was trying to stay connected to this part of my life, wanting to try to make sense out of it, that maybe the marriage didn't work. Maybe God took me all around and now I could be used by him. So I was neutering my content to be appropriate for the church world, and they didn't mess with me. And I wasn't authentic enough to be with the people I probably needed to be with. So for at least maybe 2.5 years, I would be waiting. And it never came. So then it caused me to question, okay, well, if God used me and I was all this and all that, and we had all these breakthrough moments, I go through a divorce and now I'm suddenly not usable in this way. And I got to a point where I just love God so much that he was just like, what if all of this was to move you along? What if this wasn't the place where you camp out forever? What if there was more for you to do? And my brother would tell me, he said, if everybody was kind to you, you would never left.
Exactly.
If they were supportive and warm and nurturing and giving me everything I needed, I would still be there divorced, still serving in that church, because that's how committed I was, that even though we didn't work out, I'm going to serve God. And because people, I thank them now. Thank you for doing what you did, because I would have never gotten here.
Right. Sometimes God will make us move in the way we don't want to, but it's very, very necessary. And so, because I have watched you grow over the years, and I know this is the first time we're meeting, I am very, very proud of you. Some women never move, they stay stuck in whatever that is and don't have the courage to move forward. And you've done just that. So, I hope you are just as proud as yourself as the rest of us clapping for you are. And so I want you to give advice to women in different stages of this process. I know we kind of talked about it, but for the woman that's still deciding, what should they ask themselves before leaving?
If you're still deciding, here's what I do. I imagine myself on my deathbed. I'm 105 years old. I lived a good life. And I look back at this chapter, this decision, and I say, what decision would make me proud? If I'm at the end of my life and I look back now, what choice would I be most proud of? And the choice that I would have been proud of was go. So I would tell that woman to maybe do the same practice and consider it later down the line. What would you be happy? Like, what would you be proud that you did? And that doesn't always mean right or wrong or what everybody else wants. It's a personal thing, because many of us know deep down inside what we need to do. We know.
Right.
I am saying, listen to that. The divorce for me was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And it was the absolute best thing that has ever happened in my entire life. I saved my life by making this decision. And I had no clue what was going to come from it. It wasn't easy, but it was true.
And look at you now. Look at you now. What about the fear of disappointing God?
People always disagree with me, but God led me on the path to divorce. I don't know if I'm not saying he intended for that and all this and that. I'm saying in the moment when I am seeking, the circumstances continually led me to this path. And I prayed a prayer for God to help me. And I didn't realize the help that he was going to give me was out of this marriage. Disappointing God. And maybe you got to get to a bottom. We all have our bottom. Mm-hmm. I got to a place where I said, I would rather go to hell for the rest of my life than live in this condition. So if me making this choice means I am no longer in the faith, so be it. But I'm not going to die a death here on earth and then wait 50, 60, 70 years later for heaven and live a miserable existence while I'm telling people how good God is. No, 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 no. I literally in my heart of hearts said, if I have to go to hell, that's fine. If what I've done to free myself, to save myself, warrants hell, so be it. That was my bottom. Mm-hmm. I did not feel like I disappointed God. I felt like I disappointed myself far too long. Mm-hmm. And it was time for me to do the right thing for me.
What would you say to women so they don't, and sometimes maybe it's necessary, but that they don't lose themselves to a point that they feel like they're going to die if they don't do something? What should they do before that point?
Be honest. Be honest. Every step of the way, be honest. If you can't be honest with your partner, be honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself, be honest with God. But be honest when something is not working for you. When you feel the tug that you wake up in your life, you're cooking, cleaning, you're managing everything, you're paying the bills, you got all this stuff going on. You feel like there's nothing for me. There's no joy anymore. There's no peace. And you find yourself convincing yourself that this is good because look what John has, or maybe Molly's still single and I should be thankful. Be honest. Get in therapy way early. Before you even think you need it, get in therapy. Start processing what's coming up for you. And then do the hard thing by making changes then. Like, I am not going to do all this. It's not feeding me. Or if your partner is doing things that aren't okay, they speak to you poorly, they cheat on you, they abuse you, whatever the thing is, stop it early and be more honest at the very beginning that this doesn't work for me.
And I know we didn't get to talk about it a lot, but what about the kids? How do we protect our children while we're going through this, especially someone that is a public figure?
I think it's a difficult part. A lot of us worry about our children and how it affects them. If your marriage is dysfunctional, they know it anyway. You're not protecting them by staying. You're actually causing harm because they will model the type of relationship you've taught them. So if it's not healthy, they're going to have work to do in their life no matter what. And when I accepted that this decision may mean they were going to be in therapy, and I was okay with that because I decided I would rather them know a life that's real and true than one that looks good but is false. My children and your children too, they will be okay. They're very resilient. They find their way, and there are millions of people that have to walk this path. The children part was my biggest fear, and that ended up working out okay. I had to choose my life or the illusion that I was giving them. So if I died because I stayed in a situation that was harmful to me, they wouldn't have a mom. If I went to the psych ward because I completely lost my mind, they would have a marriage, but they wouldn't have a mom. And I chose, I would rather be the best mom that I can be in honesty and truth than a mere fraction in order to preserve some sort of image or illusion that they had about their family.
That's so powerful. And so, for all women that are watching you, cheering you on, but not quite where you are, what do you say to her? Maybe just divorced, just out of something negative, not really feeling confident. What do you say?
I just smile because I know what's coming. And I'm so thankful for all the women that are having to walk this path. I thank God for the ones who don't, the ones who stay married and the ones who find a path. I'm thankful for them. Either way, it's work. And the ones who are now starting this journey, I say dream again. Start to get a vision for your life, for your future. And don't get distracted on what things look like. It's a matter of time. You just got to keep walking. Stop being angry about the past. You're going to have to let a lot of stuff go. It won't be fair. It won't even be just. Okay? And that's okay. The greatest gift is you being who you were meant to be and living the life that you were meant to live. That is the greatest gift. And if you can have family along the way, if you can have your children, if you can have 50% or whatever you want, like from your old life, great. The biggest thing I want to just celebrate you for making the next right choice and doing what you feel is best. And I honor you and the journey that you are walking.
Wow, that is powerful. And I am so proud of you. Thank you again for saying yes to Legally Uncensored. I'm sure a lot of women are going to be empowered by everything you said today. I am. I'm not even married, divorced, or anything, but I really feel empowered by you. And I hope you keep doing your thing.
Yes, thank you. And I work with women in all parts of the journey who need support. And I have this book coming out, Honest, which will really go into more detail about my experience walking this path and what it looks like. So it's called Honest. It comes out May 19th. If you are on Amazon or any of those types of book retailers, they'll have it. And then you can also follow me on Myesha Chaney at Myesha Chaney on all platforms. I talk a lot about stuff. I might not talk about it forever because I'm closing this chapter, baby. I just think it's time for us to be honest people and live a beautiful, rich life no matter what comes.
And we love that for you. And thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
This conversation needed to exist. To everyone listening, what we just unpacked is real. Divorce is hard and even harder when you have to do it in public life. That adds a layer most people will never understand. But what Myesha's story shows us is that the truth is not the enemy of faith. Silence is. Wherever you are in your journey, still deciding, currently in it, or rebuilding on the other side, I hope today gave you something to hold on to. If this episode hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on all platforms, Legally Uncensored, and leave a review. It helps more people find this conversation. Until next time, stay honest, stay protected, and stay uncensored.